In today's episode, it's about emotional abuse. It's about to be aware how, like, when we receive it, and as well how we can stop it, like to don't feel abused emotionally and how to get out of it. And for that, I have Michelle Anhang, is a certified coach who specializes in supporting individuals and families living with mental health challenges as well as those moving forward after loss. In addition to coaching, Michelle is a motivational speaker who shares her story of becoming widowed at, at the age of 34 when her husband died by suicide, and how she navigated her way through stigma, shame, and her own mental health challenges to rebuild her life intentionally. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So yeah, tell me about your story. So how you experience emotional abuse, if you have any, in your childhood and then in your relationships, and yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. So yeah, my story with emotional abuse started when I was a child. I guess you could call my mother a narcissist. I know that term is thrown around so much and these days, but essentially, um, the way I often talk about it is I say, a lot of kids get bullied when they go to school, and I went to school to get away from my bullies
Mm,
because my mostly my mother, but my father was a small part of it as well. They really bullied me. They put me down. um, it was constantly, everything that I did was not good enough, right? The way I looked wasn't good enough. That had to be changed. Everything about me was wrong. There was a lot of manipulation, a lot of gaslighting, and that essentially means like what we see as reality. Like, if I say, oh, the sky is blue,
mm,
my mother might say, no, what are you talking about? It's red. And then could try to convince, so I'm like, wait, so I would start doubting my own reality and my truth.
mm,
And so that really, messed me up a lot as a kid. And I really didn't have a strong sense of who I am. I didn't trust myself because, when I would try and make decisions, you know, my mother would either tell me, usually tell me it was wrong. And her way of saying it too was not, oh, you made a mistake. It was, you made a stupid mistake. So
mm,
it's like I couldn't even make regular mistakes, like they were that bad. And so I grew up with having zero self-worth, having a very low opinion of myself, like I said, not trusting myself, and not having any kind of direction in life. And sadly, that opened me up to other abusers. And while you were talking about my husband, he was a wonderful man, but he had severe mental illness. And after he passed away, I got into I had a few relationships, and sadly one was worse than the next.
mm. What happened? What I want to know is like, can you give examples of the emotional abuse that you received, and then
Yeah,
how you have to deal with it, like how you realize, holy shit, what is this? Or this is
yeah.
emotional abuse, and how you get out of it.
Yeah, sure. So the last relationship that I had before I had that wake up call of like, oh my gosh, it's me. I keep repeating the same thing. It was really, his behavior was he was exactly like my mother.
Mm,
Everything that was wrong in our relationship was my fault because I came from a messed up childhood.
mm,
Even though he also did,
of
he
course.
had trauma, he had a lot of messed up stuff happening in his life, but it was the fact that he kept blaming it on me, that it was all my fault.
Mm,
And I partly believed it, even though like part of me was like, you're messed up too. There was that part of me that didn't trust myself and thought maybe it is actually my fault. And and I carried so much shame around that too. And so I believed him, and so I kept trying harder and trying harder, and of course it was never enough. And the abusive things were, for one thing, blaming. I was blamed for everything. um, I was told, he did the gaslighting too. So, things that, like, I can't even remember what the word was, but it was just like a common English word. And I said, something about that. And he's like, you're using that in the wrong context. That's not what it means. And I'm like, are
Oh,
you
yeah.
kidding me? Like, let's look it up. Like, but I'm actually like, I can't believe I'm looking this word up to prove to you that you're wrong. And then, like, even when I did, he was just like, yeah, whatever, would change it of like, that's not what you said. And it's like, wait, and it's like, I feel that, when we're in an emotionally abusive relationship, often the best way we can tell is because we feel like we are going crazy. Like, did I have that conversation? Did that actually happen? Did they actually say that? And you feel like you want to just bang your head against the wall. And it was so many things like this. And and then of course we went for therapy, and he would tell the therapist all these things about me to make it seem like I was the problem. And it was like, okay, yes, I'll own part of it, but there are two of us here, and can we talk about also what your part is? But it was all about, he was there to fix me, and I was lucky to have him. And that part of me also believed it, and also judged him, that what's wrong with you, that because I thought I was broken. I was just like, okay, I'm screwed up. You're pointing it out to me, but why would you want to be with someone screwed up? So really, like, just very, very messed up on, in so many ways. And he was telling me that I needed help. He was just always, just putting me down. And another way that that he was abusing me as well is, we would have an argument and then he would stonewall me, which is, he would shut me down, like, I'm not talking about this anymore. Or I won't, and I would just say, like, can we make up? Can we make this better? No, I'm not ready to talk to you. And if I wanted affection, then it was just like, no, I can't give that to you right now. So it was really like this huge wall around him, and I describe it often that, it's almost like you're like wanting to, like, punch them on the chest, and they just stand there and they don't notice that you're even there. And you're like, how can you not see me? How can you not see the pain that I'm in? And that so much, that, like, there's a whole lack of compassion. And so it really, a very, very painful experience.
You know what I noticed as well, personally, is I noticed, like, where that come from. So, for example, I was doing emotional abuse. I was doing, and from there, that came from controlling,
Yeah.
and as well because my inner child wasn't healed. And in your partner's case, I noticed it's like he behaved as a little boy.
Yeah.
Because in adulthood, yeah, we can see us as adult, but anyway, inside of them, they are like, is an inner child who hasn't been taken care of.
Yeah.
And to react that way towards you, like, no, I cannot talk to you, unconditional love, instead of hugging you. So
Right.
it's like, come on, you need to heal
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're saying about the emotional abuse that goes both ways, because often, we talk about narcissism and codependence, and, we need each other in a way, when we have these toxic patterns. And codependent people, we are manipulative.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's, me trying to get his love in sideways ways, or even trying to convince him to stay with me and work things out. And that was something that I realized also, towards the end of the relationship, when I was doing my own work. And this was, I think, the biggest aha moment, where I was thinking about how much he manipulated me. And then I realized, if I turn this around, how did I manipulate him? And I hated him by the end of our relationship. Like, he did some really terrible things, and there were other women involved, and, it was just nasty. And I stayed in it. And I realized that my manipulation was pretending to want to be in this relationship when I hated him. You know,
Mm.
I only wanted him there to prove to me that I was lovable, because I didn't know any other way to prove it to myself. So if he shows me that I'm lovable, then it must be true. And giving him all my power. So, you know, it's definitely true. You know, and I think that the abuse on our side shows up differently, because we often abuse ourselves even worse than we abuse anybody around us. Like with everyone around us, it's manipulation to get love, but we're not intentionally hurting people. But there's definitely a control element also that I completely agree. Where we feel that we need to micromanage every little thing so that we feel safe.
Yes, I think that is control coming from. I mean, personally, when I start to heal my inner child, I start to let go the controlling of people, because that is the main thing. And because the people didn't want to do what I wanted, the emotional abuse came in the way.
Mm,
So when I stop controlling people, no more emotional abuse to anyone, and I start
right.
to improve
Yeah.
myself in my own journey with coaching when I was learning this. So in the end of the day, how did you get out from that relationship? Because that relationship was toxic.
Yes.
What made click in your mind saying, I am out of here?
So I'll be honest with you. He dumped me at the end of all of it.
He go for it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wait, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, so he had been involved with another woman, and he told me about it. And essentially a whole month had passed and I wasn't over it yet.
Mm.
So he dumped me. And I actually thanked him. I said, thank you, because I would have kept trying to make this work. So thank you for setting me free, because I didn't know how.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I can't say that I walked away from that one with my
It's really good
pride.
because that is a way how we realize we have been toxic in a relationship, that the guy choose another woman.
Yeah,
And this is the
yeah,
second case I hear this, and it's like, oh, that
yeah.
is, and in the first case, I said, oh,
Well,
that is really good.
this woman was around long before I was. She was apparently there throughout. So that was a piece of it also. You know, yeah, choosing somebody that was, I knew he was still in love with her. And this was part of my toxicity, was thinking that I could win him over, and that, you know, somehow I could convince him to be with me, even though I knew he still loved this woman.
Mm.
So, you know, and it's weird too, that, like, you know, we were in this relationship and he told me he still loved her, and I still stayed. So, you know, it's, yeah, so many elements of
What do you find?
toxicity.
What do you find out specifically in that to heal that part? It's like, because it's, if he told you, hey, I am in love with her, why you kept going? Because what I notice with me and my clients is they set up a goal, I'm going to make him love me, when necessarily we are wasting our time and energy there.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's, you know, it's our need to be loved and to prove that we're lovable that keeps us. And, you know, thankfully I was working with an excellent therapist who I was slowly healing. But again, I was healing my whole childhood. Like, this is where I was doing my inner child work. So I wasn't even focusing on, at that time, on healing what was wrong in the relationship. I was dealing with what my parents had done to me. And I've been estranged from my family for 25 years now. And so dealing with all of that. But it was,
So
you know,
the
it was a
grieving of,
process. Hmm?
the grieving of not belonging to your family, like to your parents, and
Yeah.
being in this relationship because that is where you recognize yourself as you were belonging in there. And doesn't matter if the guy was telling you, hey, I am in love with another woman, you were going to stay there anyway, because
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
belonging. I
And the
see.
truth is, I loved his family more than I loved him. So, and that was it. Like, I'll be honest, like he has a wonderful family and I love them and I loved being part of a family. And you're 100% right. It was, me seeing what I was lacking there and trying to find a replacement.
Yeah, and that was comfortable for you to stay, not to leave because you felt belong.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
And when we're used to abuse from childhood, this is what we know love to be.
Oh, there are
And
different kind of love side.
yeah, but that's all we know. We don't know what healthy love is. So this pattern of the drama and the abuse, we're used to that. And we're like, oh, okay, this is what it looks like.
Mm.
We don't know what it is to have a healthy love.
A beautiful woman, she told me her mom was treating her really badly since she was born, abusing her verbally. And then when she got married with that guy the same. So for her was love, and and then now she divorced of the guy. She got married with another guy, and the guy said, "Hey, you're so beautiful," and she has this crazy moment when she wants to feel like she wants him to tell her bad words or swear at her, and the guy said, "I'm not going to do that because I love
Yeah.
you." And she's like, become more crazy, like she wants to hit
Yeah.
him. Tell
Yeah.
me, you're a fucking bitch. Tell me this, tell me that. Because that is the way how she recognized love, and that is because of her mom, how her mom was treating her.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when I show her, like, and pointed out, she said, "Now I get it why." Because the
Sure.
man is really nice man, but
Yeah.
she said, "It's me. It's why
Yeah.
I want he treat me bad."
Yeah.
And when we
And
found
it's,
that,
yeah.
easy
And
to.
it's amazing that she even got into that relationship, because often when we come from an abusive um, home, or we don't tend to be attracted to people who are not into the drama. Like, we find them boring. We don't know why, but we just think they're boring because we're so used to the constant fighting, right?
Good one. I forgot about that. Now I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to the drama, in the suffering, in the being a victim, or being the rescuer, or being the persecutor.
Yeah.
Oh dear, you are totally right. For that reason, we found that man boring. He could be amazing, but it's
Yeah.
boring. And for that reason,
Right.
we keep going for the bad guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we know it too. Like, we know when we go into it, we know that they're wrong.
Yeah, we go
We
into
start
it.
making our list of the red flags. We call all our girlfriends and we're like, these are the flags, but we don't do anything about it. And then later at the end, we're crying and we're like, I saw it all in the beginning. I knew. And how many times, do we need to do that to ourselves? I mean, I guess for many of us, including me, it was a few times till I said, enough, I'm not doing this anymore.
This is so interesting because back in time, I have a beautiful man, and he wants me. And in my case, I said, no, no, I'm fine. And then after like how many years already? 3 years. I was talking to another woman, and she said, "So what happened with the guy?" I said, "I said, I don't know, but I didn't want that guy." Was too perfect. So and now I can recognize, yeah, of course, and that is because I still have my own issues to deal with, because I wanted just to have fun. I was in a dysfunctional relationship where I didn't want to go straight to another relationship. I just wanted to have fun. I wanted just to go dating, but nothing
Yeah.
like in a relationship. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
after I have done a lot of work in myself, now I understand more about the drama. This is
Yeah.
so good. This is so good. Okay, but tell me more a little bit. If you have something to share about how you came out from that emotional
Yeah.
abuse when the person does it in the moment. So, for example, if somebody abused you and you recognize it, how you deal with it, you don't get to you.
Yeah, boundaries. Really, I believe that the only way to deal with these kinds of relationships is to end them. You know, I don't think any of us deserve to be in an abusive relationship. You know, and I know that's very drastic, and I know that's not always possible, but it's about the boundaries, and it's about really starting with small steps and getting, you know, and of really just saying like, I don't want to talk to you when you're being like this, and hanging up the phone, walking out of the room, whatever it is, just saying that's not healthy. And trusting our intuition is so important. Of this doesn't feel right, and it doesn't matter if they agree with you or not, because we know they're not going to agree with you if it doesn't serve them. But just knowing this is my truth, and taking care of ourselves in that moment of just like, okay, what's best for me. And you know, and I, you know, it's a practice. It's really like you know, it's scary to do in the beginning, but the more you practice it, the more you get used to it. And I found, like, for my inner child, that was the most healing part, because really, you know, when we are emotionally abused, our inner children are terrified. They don't trust us as adults. They don't trust, they don't know what to trust. So they are just scared of everything, because the whole world is terrifying to them. And so really the best way to heal her and to quiet her voice is to show her that you are trustworthy. And so for me, every time I was in the kind of relationship and I would start to get that feeling of like, this isn't good, and, you know, she'd be screaming, then I would say, I can't be part of this, and walk away. And so I found that was the biggest piece, was taking care of me and taking care of her, because, you know, we can't go back in time and heal that child, but we can bring her into the present and say, I can protect you today, and I'm going to show you. And it's in every single little moment where you're choosing yourself over that other person who's being abusive.
Yeah, that's really good. In my case, how I notice the emotional abuse according to the reactivity of the person, and from there is what I overthink about that situation.
Right.
And
Yes.
that is key. It's so important to manage our mind, because we
Yes.
feel guilty if we have been an
Yeah.
expert on codependency.
Yeah.
People please let us expert. We start to overthink. It's like, oh, what I have done wrong? How
Right.
can I make him or her happy? When we don't have to, you know. And it's
Yes.
managing our mind is
Yes.
so important to
Yeah.
stop our self emotional abuse, like when we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
And how I have managing that is with journaling. Just
Mm-hmm.
journaling
Yeah.
out is just to see what I want, and as well saying, sincerely, that is not up to me. I'm so sorry for whatever that person experienced, but it's not my
Yeah.
problem. It's
Right.
not taking ownership, because people placing or caretakers as a codependents, we care so much of the person when is we are losing ourselves, and we don't have to do that anymore. And for
Yeah.
that reason, we have become therapists or coaches.
Yeah, and that's and it's so true. And we were conditioned to believe that taking care of ourselves was wrong,
Yeah.
because the abuser obviously didn't get anything out of us taking care of ourselves, so they told us we were wrong for it. But the truth is, that was the biggest abuse of all, was to tell, you know, that message that we got, that, you know, self-care is selfish, taking care of yourself is selfish, boundaries are selfish. Like, who do you think you are to say no to me? Right. Like, you know, and really, that is the path to healing. It's saying no and taking care. And I love what you were saying about the overthinking, because that is such a big cue of when you're starting to think like, and strategize and manipulate and go to all those places, you're now in their toxicity.
Mm,
And I want to also point out, because you had mentioned about their reactivity,
mm,
sometimes they're really good at hiding it. So it can, yes, in with certain cases, 100% when they're reactive, it's like, okay, that's their stuff. But also if they're super calm and you're getting reactive, I feel that's a sign too of abuse, that like, why aren't they affected here? You know, there's something going on. So that's a good place to question what's really happening, that they're able to stay this calm and I am being so reactive. And so, you know, just recognizing the imbalance there.
That is so good, so good, so good. So yeah, I guess I have done it through journaling and through just
Hmm.
focus on myself in order to stop overthinking. So
Yeah.
that could be with music, because there are two things in here. What I notice is external, which is music, we can listen music, we can listen stuff.
Yeah.
But the internal is to stop the overthinking and
Yeah.
just start to think in your life. And it is okay to don't pay attention what the person is doing.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
okay that you do your own self-care, because
Yeah.
from the everything is coming from within. And
Yeah.
if we can manage our mind, nail it,
Yeah.
we are totally out of the drama cycle.
Yeah. Well, and I love where you're pointing with our thoughts, because often our that you know, that those ruminating thoughts and the overthinking is an abusive voice, because when that's, you know, when we're raised that way, we tend to take over the way that however they spoke to us, that's how we talk to ourselves. So we will tell ourselves how stupid we are and how broken we are and how messed up we are. And, you know, the work that I do with clients too is getting them to recognize when they are talking terribly to themselves. Like I call it the friend test. That if you would never say those words out loud to a friend, don't say it to yourself.
Mm.
And have compassion too, that don't be like, oh, you're so stupid. Oh, I'm so stupid for calling myself stupid. You know, like, you don't beat yourself up for that. Just like, okay, I'm working on this, I'm practicing. But when you catch yourself doing that, it's, you know, it's important to stop. And then it's important to also change it to something positive. So, you know, if you're saying like, oh, I'm so stupid for doing that, like, no, I'm not stupid. I'm human. Humans make mistakes and it's okay. And so turning it into something kind and practicing moving that way. And I found for me that was so critical. Or, you know, and when I would be overthinking, to just stop myself and say, you know what, I don't need to go there right now. I can just think about something else. What's, you know, and just noticing that, like, when I'm in that space, I'm making myself feel badly about myself, and saying like, okay, what can I do to make myself feel good? Which then, you know, lends to what you were saying about outside. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to put on some music. I'm going to start dancing, doing something that I love, but making that shift, you know, to something positive, because it's hard to just say, okay, stop. And you know, and sometimes we don't want to go into those dark places, and just say like, okay, you know what, I can speak more nicely to myself. And I found, you know, for myself and with clients that I've worked with, it only takes a few weeks of when you start practicing it. Like, for one thing, when you start paying attention, then you can't stop noticing how often you do it. And so that's motivation alone to change, of like, I can't believe how mean I am all the time. And so then you want to change, and then just shifting it to something kinder, of just like, you know what, I can be my own best friend. And that's so healing for our inner child.
Mm.
She needs that.
Yes. I like what you said about being kind to yourself, and it's being kind is not like something stop overthinking about it.
Right.
It is not
Yeah.
that. It is
Yeah.
yeah. For example, in my case, I did it with music, or I do it with audiobooks, because that
Yeah.
is external, and I haven't
Yes.
been kind to myself to do it. Like you said, this is okay, and then just slowly we are going to do it internally. That is
Yeah.
the kindness and the compassion that we need to have for ourselves.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't notice I didn't have it, so now I do know. I do know
Yeah.
that. I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Oh, that is really good. And
Yeah.
how are you now with after all of that roller coaster with your old
Uh,
relationships?
yeah. So it's funny, because now I call myself the queen of self-care. I'm
Yes.
so, you know, I really have learned that the truth is, we're not good to anybody else unless we are taking care of ourselves first.
Yeah.
Because really, when we're coming from a place of being depleted, we're resentful, and we don't want to show up that way in our relationships, whether it's with our friends, with our kids, with our partners, with anybody. And so if my cup is full, then, and I'm so full of taking care of me, I'm overflowing and I have tons to give to everybody else. But if I'm tired, if I'm cranky, and then somebody asks something of me, I'm just like, oh, fine, I'll do it. But I'm angry at them for asking me.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I find that like really the most loving thing we can do for the people around us is to love ourselves.
Yeah, it's like to define everything what we like, and we do it for ourselves. And
Yeah.
from there, we recharge
Yeah.
our energy and our self love, where we can have love to give others. I see. Beautiful, beautiful. Has been amazing to have you here, Michelle. So where people can find you?
So you can find me through my website, which is michelleanhangcoaching.com. And my last name is Anhang. I'm also all over social media, Michelle Anhang Coaching. You can find me all over. So, if you have questions, you want to speak to me, please feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. It has been very good.
Thank you. It's been wonderful chatting.